No, 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 no. I refuse. I refuse to believe that this is a real thing, guys. We're going to find out, though, but I refuse to believe it. As of right now, I'm going to go ahead and say that the Vice President of the United States of America knows the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to go ahead and say that because I don't listen. We can say whatever you want about Kamala Harris. I am down for it. Sure, whatever. I don't care. It's not my problem, right? But I refuse to believe that she has. No, we're going to find out. Did Kamala Harris flub the Pledge of Allegiance? This is a suggestion via a channel member. Let's go ahead and check this out immediately.
After confidently predicting a Kamala Harris victory, Democratic strategist James Carville is now admitting that his crystal ball was wrong. And it's hard not to put a smile on your face with this one, conceding that he failed to listen to his own famous advice. It's the economy, stupid. It was that and a whole lot of other things. Carville
Wait, is that his quote?
Also proposed that the Democratic Party needs to go big and go populist after losing the economic narrative. But here's another piece of advice Democrats should consider. Stop nominating terrible candidates. Just today, Kamala Harris seemed to forget the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. No. Watch this.
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the United States.
Fire her. Fire her immediately. Fire her right now. I'm sending this to everybody.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops.
Oh, no.
Here now with reaction,
Twice.
Hoover Institution senior fellow Victor Davis Hanson, the Federalist correspondent Brianna Lyman, and Democratic pollster Doug Schoen. Doug, thank you all for joining us. But Doug, come on, to mess up the Pledge of Allegiance that for the Vice President of the United States, that should be an easy one, right?
Well, it just underscores how really unsuited she was for national office and certainly not to be the president of the United States.
Oh my God, guys.
As for James Carville, he was so certain the Democrats were going to win. Everybody who was against Kamala Harris was either wrong or stupid
or some type of ist, right? Or partaking in some type of ism,
racist or out of touch, whatever. I think we realize that we are a divided country. The issues, is he's now acknowledged, the economy, the southern border, crime, we're all working for the Republicans. And ultimately, as you've suggested and your other guests have suggested, the victory was clear. And I think my party needs to do a real rethink of where it stands, cooperate with Trump, where they agree, where the American people want cooperation, and seek to carve out a new and arguably different identity for the Democratic Party, like the one we had in the Clinton years, which was centrist, fiscally conservative, tough on crime, and strong on the southern border. That Democratic Party can win. This Democratic Party just lost.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, a little bit more than that also. I mean, work on also what you're attempting to push towards the masses. Not everyone agrees with, let's say, the moral police. Okay. Not everyone agrees with all of this. So, like, once we can kind of figure that out, then we can, move forward.
Now, they lost in a big way, Brianna. What's your take on it? I mean, Kamala Harris was a horrific candidate. I mean, she came in, I think, 6th place in California behind Andrew Yang, dropped out before they even got to the first vote, for goodness sake. I mean, she was the cat's meow at the beginning, but by the time people actually listened to her, they were ready to get rid of her, but somehow she became the vice president and became the nominee.
And so somehow, I mean, Biden said specifically what he was looking for. Kamala Harris, in fact, fit the visible needs, let's say, of what he needed.
Yeah, and that's a story for the entire Democratic Party. You know, James Carville, a few months ago, he correctly pointed out that Democrats went from "it's the economy, stupid" to "you're stupid if you think this economy is bad." And he was right. Democrats, including Kamala Harris, have spent months telling us that this is one of the greatest economies we've ever had. They use metrics that most Americans do not use, like GDP. And then they also went and told us that, yeah, things are bad, but we're not in a recession because we're redefining a recession. Carville called that out, and he was right. And yet now he does a 180, and he says that Americans didn't want to settle for soaring GDP and subsiding inflation. That is why the Democrats lost. Soaring GDP is not a metric average Americans use. And yeah, inflation may be subsiding from record highs created by the Biden-Harris administration. Americans remember, inflation was still lower when Donald Trump left office compared to today. And until people like James Carville, Kamala Harris, and the party gets it, they will continue to lose.
Okay, guys. I mean, a couple of things. Let's just be honest here. Inflation was higher because he left right, like as the kind of while the 19 was still kind of going. We haven't seen any. We didn't really see any effects of it under his term like that. The initial effects, in fact, but the after effect, let's say, of that, he didn't see it, and that's the reason for that specific reasoning there. But now GDP is not a good metric for like the average American to use under any circumstances because they don't see it. You know who sees GDP? Corporations and the government for tax purposes. And I think that in itself should tell you how distant the Democrat Party actually is when it comes to what actually is going on here. The economy is what affects the voting populace, not your donors, Democrat Party. Okay? The corporations are happy, right? So as we're told, the citizenry, let's say, as we're told, prices are the prices because these are just the prices. Okay, right? While companies are basically making record levels of profit yearly, what do you mean by that exactly? Okay, so if we're suffering, but you're not suffering, but you're making record amounts of profit, it tells us that you're price gouging us. To be honest, that's what it says. But all right.
Yeah, come on, Brianna. I mean, my wife Julie and I always sit around the kitchen table talking about the GDP and how that affects the price of eggs. I mean, that's just come on, that's just a common occurrence. But Victor Davis Hanson, you're one of our favorites. I mean, it just seemed that the basic premise and thesis of these candidates and their party as a whole never rang true to the American people.
No, it didn't. I think James Carville knew she was going to lose, and he felt that he was dutiful to build momentum by saying she was a sure winner and trash Trump, but he's not stupid. Doug made a good point. From those wilderness years of 20 years, from 1972, starting with the McGovern left-wing disaster and the landslide Nixon victory, all the way to Bill Clinton's victory in 92, that was 20 years where they only had 4 years of Carterism. Clinton came in and rejected Carterism. You go back and look at the 1996 convention platform of the Democrats, Jason. It's physical sobriety, balanced budget, close the border, tough on crime, no exemptions for youthful offenders. They even use the word God's country, God's nation, when they talk about green policies and conservation. It was a very moderate fiscal sobriety, and it was a winning agenda. And they renounced that, and they rejected it, and they went into first a progressive Obama period, and then this French Revolutionary Jacobin crazy period, and they destroyed the party. Carville knows that, and he knows what he has to do. He's got to go back to the 1996 platform. Nancy Pelosi and people like Chuck Schumer were giving speeches about why they had to close the border, and it was to protect union wages and the integrity of citizenship. That seems surreal today. It just almost seems like impossible to even imagine the Democratic Party of that nature.
Yeah, what's interesting here is that the right did the same thing, kind of. Like the right in its current state is basically just a response to the current state of the left. Okay, I think both of the parties need to go back to the 90s. I'd say that. I would say at least, yeah, I would say the 90s. Right, go back to the 1900s, guys. Both parties, and then we'll actually have nice things again. Okay, get away from the ideologies, get away from all of the echo chambers. Go back to where people would have best friends that were from different parties. These type of things. Go back to that time, and you'll see how we flourish. Okay, go back to the point where certain niche subgroups of Americans, let's say, did not just completely tell the entire populace that we have to agree with them under all circumstances or we're evil, right? Go back to these times, please, and you'll notice instantly. Right? Focus on the country first. These are beneficial things.
Yeah, and adding on to that, Doug, it just seems like the Democrats are void of policy ideas. What new creative policy idea did they bring to the table? I can't even name anything.
Jason, there wasn't anything. And
Yeah,
look,
well-
I appreciate what Victor Davis Hanson said as one of the architects of the 96 convention and platform, along with my partner, Mark Penn. I think that's where the Democratic Party has to go. It's not new ideas. It's the right
old ones.
values and
Telling
the
you.
right policies that reflect what the American people and working people want. If we go back to that, as Victor said, we as Democrats can win. And if we don't, we'll be in the wilderness another 20 years.
All right, guys. So, did Kamala Harris flub the Pledge of Allegiance? Yeah, twice. The first one was pretty obvious. And the second one, she kind of like stutter-stepped, let's say, into saying it. Like she had to let the people around her say it first, and then she figured it out. So I'm going to say that she messed up the Pledge of Allegiance twice. Okay, and you ran for president. All right, guys. All right. This is my lightsaber. Hey guys, you guys subscribe to the other channels? Logical Movie Reviews with Mr. L. Boyd, along with Mr. L. Boyd Music. Oh, also, Mr. L. Boyd Discusses. Guys, check it out. And if you haven't heard it today, you're amazing.